Okay, I guess it's going to record by itself.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Come on in.
All right, I'm going to start the go live. It looks like we have attendees coming in, so stand
All
by.
right. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Good morning. As you all come in, feel free to get comfortable, get some coffee, maybe share with us where you are tuning in from. We are so excited to have you here this morning. All right, we got Texas. Good morning, Geneva. We got LA. Where are you all joining us from this morning? Portland, California. Got folks from all over the place. Seattle, good morning to you. Got a lot of folks from Portland. Salem, good morning. Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. We just want to make sure that we are technically sound before we jump right in. Yeah, we really want to know where everyone is tuning in from. So as you roll in, just share with us via the chat where you are joining us from this morning. All right, it looks like we are live and ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. First of all, welcome to the Financial Beginnings Virtual Speaker Series to celebrate Financial Literacy Month this year in 2022. So throughout this entire month, our organization will be bringing you different experts to really share a lot of different financial education topics. So before I introduce our wonderful speaker for today, I would like to take a moment to share a little bit about who we are and to thank our amazing sponsors who made this possible today. So just to get started, my name is Carissa, and I'm the market manager for Financial Beginnings Nebraska. So Financial Beginnings Oregon, Washington, California, and Nebraska exist to provide free, unbiased financial education across our states and beyond. Our programs are really designed for all age groups, and each lesson is facilitated by a trained volunteer. If you'd like to learn more about what we do and how to get involved, feel free to visit our website to learn how you can bring our programming to your communities. So today we have an amazing session. It's called Between Your Heart and Mind, Untangling Financial Conversations, and it's going to be really good. The speaker is Jen Nash of Priceless Financial Coaching, and I'm going to be your moderator today. We do have some technical assistance. His name is Jason. He will be off camera, but he'll be monitoring the chat and also making sure that we remain technically sound throughout the entire presentation. We're going to do our Q&A at the end, but as you think of your questions, please drop them into the chat and we will get to those at the end once Jen finishes her presentation. And then just one last housekeeping note. We are going to send out all these webinar recordings in early May, but for the time being, these recordings can be found on the Financial Beginnings Oregon Facebook page, where we are currently streaming live. Now, I just want to take a quick moment to thank our incredible sponsors for making this series possible, and a huge thank you to Bank of America. They are our presenting sponsor this year. Thank you so much for your belief in financial education, Bank of America. We appreciate you very much. And another huge thank you to our other sponsors. We have On Point Community Credit Union, our impact sponsor, and to all of our other sponsors who have supported this series. We really cannot thank you enough for your support. This really wouldn't be possible without this kind of support from you all. These sponsors include Bank of America, On Point Community Credit Union, BECU, the Division of Financial Regulation, Department of Consumer and Business Services, PNC Bank, FP Transitions, the Northwest Credit Union Foundation, State Farm, US Bank, Citizens Bank, and FMBO. So we do have some other great sessions coming up. Just want to put those out there. So we have a session coming up on April 12th, and this one is about I want to buy a house and where should I start? This will be a Spanish-friendly session. And we also have Black Women Empowering Finances. They're going to be talking about the 5 C's of business success as well next week. So we encourage you to register for those sessions. We do also have, if you're in Oregon or Washington, you are eligible to win a $1,000. You're able to win $1,000 for an Oregon College Savings Plan account. If you're in Oregon and Southwest Washington, all you have to do is sign up and attend 2 or more sessions. So I will drop that link into the chat really quick so that you can check out the other sessions that we have, especially if you qualify for that $1,000. That's awesome. And then I'm going to go ahead and get ready to announce today's session. Again, get comfortable, get your coffee. We have a great conversation coming up. Our topic today is Between Your Heart and Mind, Untangling Financial Conversations with Jen Nash. Jen is the founder of Priceless Financial Coaching, which is a heart-centered financial wellness practice that helps people make financial decisions easier. We all need that, right? As a seasoned social worker with a psychology degree, Jen is an expert in true human behavior. Her unique approach to finances shows people how to drop information from their heads into their hearts to create real and lasting changes in their lives. Jen also serves on the advisory board at Financial Beginnings, Nebraska. We're so incredibly grateful for her for sharing her wisdom with us today in this important discussion. So I'm going to turn it over to Jen at this time to take us away into the presentation.
Thank you, Carissa. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Do you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. All right. Well, again, thank you, Carissa. Hello and welcome, everyone. I hope you're all happy that it's Friday. It's been really windy and cold here in the Midwest, but this weekend is actually supposed to be pretty beautiful and we plan on getting out and enjoying it. So I hope you are looking forward to something in your weekend as well. But I'm glad you're able to take a break from your daily grind to be here with us this morning. And before we start, I'd just like to get your brain warmed up and get you in the right headspace by asking you to answer a few questions. You don't have to put it in the chat, just answer these questions to yourself. The first question is, do you believe that money can bring you happiness? And the second question is, do you believe that money can cause misery? And the third question is, do you wish that you could have all the happiness that money can bring without dealing with all the misery that it can cause? If you answered yes, then you're in the exact right place. This is where I spend the majority of my time as a financial coach. The budgeting and the debt strategies and the retirement planning really don't take a lot of effort. What takes a lot of effort is getting people out of their heads and into their hearts, because as we said, that's where the real and lasting change actually comes from. So take a second to ask yourself what you think about money. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it bad to want more of it? Is it rude to talk about it? Well, here's what I think. Money is not the most important thing in life, but it does affect the things in life that are the most important to us. It's a universal concept, and it touches every single one of us in a lot of different places. It touches our family, it touches our parenting, our healthcare, our charitable giving, the comfort and quality of our lives. It touches our retirement, and sometimes it touches the legacy we want to leave to our kids or to the world after we're gone. So I'd say, yeah, money is very, very important. But I would also point out that it's not really the money that we're all after. It's the pursuit of all those things that I just mentioned that money can make possible for us. I think we would all agree that it's not bad to want better health care or to retire with dignity or to be able to give more to the causes that we support. It's not rude to talk about those things, and it's not uncomfortable in most cases to talk about those things. So my challenge to people is usually to think about money not as the end goal, but as the vehicle that we're using to get to the end goal. And our brains already know this, by the way. We make financial decisions based on how something touches us in our heart or makes us feel. Money really is just paper and metal or code on a computer. The only true value it really has is the meaning that we give to it. And we give it that meaning based on what's happened to us in the past and the things that we want for the future. So if you said, yes, money can bring you happiness, you're absolutely right. And if you said, yes, that money can cause misery, you're absolutely right about that too. And if you're wondering if there really is a way to have all the happiness that money can bring without dealing with all the misery, then welcome to Between Your Heart and Mine, Untangling Financial Conversations. I'm Jen Nash, as Carissa already said. My company is Priceless Financial Coaching. I want to appreciate you for being with us this morning. I recently heard someone say that half of success in life is just getting into the right room. So congratulations for being here. I also want to thank Financial Beginnings for facilitating our event today and the Financial Literacy Speaker Series this month. Financial Beginnings is greatly admired and respected for providing free financial education to hundreds of schools and organizations. Financial Beginnings Nebraska is just getting started, but they've done amazing work already. Carissa is making a huge difference in the community, and that has overflowed to Iowa, which is where I'm from. So thank you, Financial Beginnings, and especially thank you, Financial Beginnings Nebraska. I'm so honored and blessed to be a part of your mission. So if you're like me, you believe that time is your most valuable resource. Because unlike money, you can never make more of it. You can't save it for the future. You can't share it with other people. And most importantly, you never know how much of it you have left. The only thing we know is today, right now, actually. We all have the exact same number of minutes in a day. And at this point in my life, I can say that I care about my minutes a lot. And I rarely, if ever, spend them on activities that don't bring me either happiness or passion or accomplishment or something that somehow enhances the quality of my life. I'm extremely picky about who I share my minutes with, and I'm extremely grateful when somebody chooses to share their minutes with me. So I appreciate you sharing your minutes with me today, and I promise I will do my absolute best to make sure that your time here today, our time together, is well spent. So grab a pen and paper. You're going to want to take a lot of notes. Write down what thoughts are coming up for you, what feelings are coming up for you. At the end, we're going to do a short writing activity to send you all off for the day. But I also want you to write down your questions as you think of them so you don't forget them. Carissa said you could put them in the chat. I think at the end of the session, we're actually going to look closer at the Q&A. But so you can put them, in the Q&A now, if that's an option, or just write them down so you can remember to ask them by the time we get there. Also, feel free to jump into your emoji panel at the bottom of your screen if you're watching this on the Facebook Live, or you can use reactions if you're with us on Zoom. And like I said, put comments in the chat box, just if something I say really resonates with you, or if it's made you reconnect with something that you haven't felt or thought of in a long time, or maybe you hear something that's really going to help you in your everyday life, just please be very expressive with those thoughts and those emojis and share them with us. We're not going to address them during our talk this morning. The questions we will, but those comments and those emojis, those emotions, and reactions help us when we're looking at metrics later, just to know if we're addressing the right topics and communicating the right messages. Also, if you're on Zoom, you should be able to adjust your screen to make either my video bigger or the slides bigger. I don't want to keep putting the slides up and down, but the majority of this presentation is going to be verbal. So the slide you're seeing may not be relevant to what I'm actually saying at the moment. So you can just make my video bigger to make it easier to ignore that, and then just adjust it back when we do reference a slide if you want to. So today, we're going to obviously talk about why financial decision making is emotional rather than rational. But we're also going to talk about how to communicate with your heart instead of your brain so that your financial conversations are calmer and more productive. And at the end, we're going to talk about what financial miscommunication has really been costing you and continues to cost you. So if it's okay with you, since we're going to spend the next hour or so together this morning, I'd like to share a little bit about myself and how my life has led me to do the work that I do and to back the missions that I support. So I was one of the children that grew up in unfortunate circumstances. My life was very chaotic and unloving and unpredictable. I was mistreated by the grown-ups who were supposed to take care of me. I was mistreated by others because my grown-ups didn't keep me safe. And I mistreated myself because my grown-ups didn't instill any sense of worth that every child needs to be healthy and to make good choices. So there was a lot of room there for a lot of things to go really wrong, and they did. So on just about every level I can think of, childhood was absolutely the worst time of my life, and I couldn't wait to escape it. And for some reason that I could never explain, I decided that money was the key to my freedom. Or actually, maybe I didn't decide that. Maybe for whatever reason, it's just, at the core of who I've always been. Sometimes we have those innate talents that seem to come out of nowhere. Well, money was mine. And money was how I was going to get away. Money was how I was going to make my life better. So even as young as elementary school, I would hide money in the loose seams of my stuffed animals. I'm sure at the time I was too little. I can't imagine that I really knew why money was important. I just knew that it was. I've always known that it was. And when I was a teenager, I started babysitting and making a lot more money. So I had to upgrade my stuffed animals to a secret bank account that I opened in another state. I just always felt safer when I had money hidden somewhere and I knew that nobody could take it away from me. It was my Linus blanket. It's always been my Linus blanket. So by the time I was 14 or 15, I was in a safe home and I didn't need to hide my money anymore, but money it never stopped meaning freedom to me. It just started representing different kinds of freedom as I went through different life stages. Now, if you knew me now, you'd never guess that I went through such a turbulent childhood. I am literally the happiest person you'll ever meet, sickeningly so to some people, but here's what you got to understand. It's really easy to be happy when you know that the worst part of your life is already over. Obviously, barring a few unpredictable tragedies, but there's a lot of comfort in knowing that the worst part of your life has already happened, and now you're strong enough to deal with pretty much anything that life throws at you. The other thing was that as soon as I reached the age of majority, I had the complete control and responsibility of my own happiness, and thank goodness, right? But I took that responsibility very seriously, and I've made it a priority to take better care of myself than anybody else ever has. So I went on to get my degree in psychology. And like many kids that grew up in unfortunate circumstances, I went to work in a public service job. And for 15 years, I was a social worker for the state of Iowa. It was very rewarding. But as I had my kids and they insisted on continuing to get older, my priorities started to change. The most important thing to me became spending more time with my kids while they were still young enough for me to enjoy them and for them to remember me spending time with them. So this is a photo of myself and my 3 kids in the summer of 2020. I'm one of those parents that won't share my kids' faces in public, but this is a good photo to use. I'm no longer one of the bigger people. I'm now the second smallest of our bunch. The only one that's still smaller than me is my 7-year-old daughter. And who knows, someday she might surpass me too. But anyway, spending more time with my kids became my top priority. And for a few years, I worked through several different possible variations of how I was going to achieve that. And when my oldest started approaching his teenage years, I still had not achieved it. So I was really starting to feel the squeeze, and the hourglass of time was really starting to come into focus for me. There was still so much more I wanted to teach them, so many more experiences that I wanted to have and memories that I wanted to make, but the sand just kept falling through the hourglass. So to be in alignment with what I had been saying for years was my top priority. I really needed to get it together, and I really needed to figure out how to make a big change. So in May of 2019, I started Priceless Financial Coaching, and in November of 2020, I quit my job as a social worker to stay home with my kids and work from home in my own business. And ever since then, I've continued to look at the world in terms of how I'm spending my time rather than how I'm spending or making my money. I now have complete control over my calendar and how I spend my days. And while my first priority is still spending as much quality time with my family as I can, my second priority is making sure that everyone has the opportunity to pursue whatever freedom means to them. And I use my natural innate talents with money as the vehicle to help them do that. So I want to share a little thought exercise that has always helped me think a little bit harder and be a little more mindful when I think about perspective. It's a short story, and I'm just going to read it exactly as it's written. It's a story about a genie who comes to somebody 24 hours before you were born. A genie appeared and said, "You look like a winner. I have enormous confidence in you. And because of that, I'm going to let you set the rules of society into which you will be born. You can set the economic rules and the social rules. Whatever you set will apply during your lifetime and the entire lifetimes of your children." And you say, "That sounds pretty nice. I like that. But what's the catch?" And the genie says, "Here's the catch. You don't know if you're going to be born rich or poor, black or white, male or female, able-bodied or infirm, intelligent or developmentally delayed. All you know is that you're going to get one ball out of a barrel with 6 billion other balls in it, the ovarian lottery, if you will. It's the most important thing that'll happen to you in your life, and you have absolutely no control over it. Now, what rules do you set?" So I don't know about you, but I would want more than 24 hours to think about that. I would want to be very careful about the choices that I made. I'm not even sure there is an answer when you really think about that. But I think this story gives us a really good lesson about perspective. The story is an equalizer, and it puts us all on a level playing field. So here's a list of some more of life's natural equalizers. There's lots and lots of them, but here's just a short list. All of these are human conditions. These are the things that at the end of the day, every human on the planet understands. If you're a human, these are the things that you've either dealt with already, you're currently dealing with in your life, or you probably will deal with at some point in your future. We can all reach each other through these shared human equalizers. And like I said, this is a really short list of all the things that make us the same. But what I really want to focus on today are all the things that make us different, because I think that one of the biggest equalizers of all is knowing and understanding that none of us are exactly the same. And there's really actually a lot to be gained by appreciating and leveraging our differences, because that's how we make progress faster. If we never had any differences, there used to be a saying when I was younger that I always used to say, if we were both the same, then one of us wouldn't be necessary. And it's true across the board. If we never had any differences, we'd never have any new ideas. We'd never make anything better. And we wouldn't be able to put two things together that were already good on their own, but now together they're amazing. And it's easy to think of that on a grand scale, like the mashup of Doritos and Taco Bell. But it's also true if you just look at it on a smaller scale, like our personal relationships. Personal relationships are the foundation of being human. We all need to interact with other people. Sometimes we don't want to, and sometimes we feel like we don't, but it really is a core human need. However, we've all experienced the world differently. And because of that, we all interact with the world differently, and we all interact with each other differently. But here's something that I really, really want you to realize, and I wish I had $1 for every time I've said this to somebody. Spill my coffee. Everything that anybody does was necessary for their survival at one point in their lives. everything that we do are things that we learn to do in order to survive in the environment that we're in. We all hold on to old patterns of behavior that maybe are no longer necessary, or maybe they no longer serve us in a positive way, but there are habits now. And we all know that habits are very, very hard to change. Everything that anybody does met a basic human need at one point in their lives. And we all have the same basic human needs, but we've all met them in different ways, depending on, what's tolerated by the people around us, what's modeled by the people around us, what has been reinforced or punished during our formative years, whether certain basic needs were just given to us unconditionally, or if we had to create chaos to get them, or fight or steal or act outside of our values in some way to get them. Basic human needs will be met one way or another. No two people have walked exactly the same path in life. No two people have gone through exactly the same thing. Similar, yes, but never exactly. And because no two people have gone through exactly the same how to meet their basic needs, no two people are going to have exactly the same why now when they make their lives decisions and choices about how they interact with the world and with other people. There's as many ways to make life's decisions as there are people in life. For every person, there's a different perspective, and each person's perspective is going to influence the decisions that they make. So when we look at this picture, if you see a 6, you're going to do your math a lot differently and come up with a completely different result than someone who sees a 9. You're going to be 100% certain of your method and your result, and so are they. And even if you are looking at it from the same side, what if one person is dyslexic or colorblind? Colorblindness and dyslexia are easy and accepted examples of how people can see things differently, and it's okay. But what about all the ways that people see things differently and we don't accept it? We insist that one is right and the other is wrong. But the reality is, perception is really, truly the only thing that is real. And I don't know how much experience you all have with people with schizophrenia, but they're a really great example of this. If you look at the brain scan of a person with schizophrenia during a hallucination, the areas of the brain that light up during a hallucination are the exact same areas of the brain that would light up if that audio or visual stimulus were actually happening. There's absolutely no difference to their brain, whether it's real or not. I've also worked with a lot of people with sensory processing disorders or autism. These people maybe will experience a violent shove from somebody who's just gently placing a hand on their shoulder, because that's how that input is being processed, right? And a person who's experienced a lot of trauma might interpret scary intentions from somebody who's just trying to show them affection. So the point is that you can't argue what's real to someone, since you don't have the ability to look through their lens. You only have the ability to interpret events from your own lens or your own perspective. And you can let that perspective divide you and slow you down, or you can use it to make progress faster. When you know what's real to someone, you know how to communicate with them. I have another really good story that illustrates this point. It's one of my all-time favorite stories. I tell it a lot. It's from Rabbi Lapin's book, Thou Shalt Prosper. The earlier story about the genie was actually from that book too, but Rabbi Lapin tells the story about how his daughter had recurring nightmares about dogs coming into her room. So again, I'm just going to read it to you. It's really short. When one of my children was very young, she was regularly awakened by a recurring nightmare. Several nights a week, I would rush into her room to calm a wild-eyed girl with a racing pulse. At 2 o'clock in the morning, I would sit on her bed while she pointed out half a dozen dogs sitting on the carpet waiting to munch her toes. She would sit in my arms trembling while I futilely explained to her that there were really no dogs at all. After several weeks of interrupted nights had reduced me to a mere shadow of my usually robust self, I knew something drastic needed to be done. The next night, when I woke up to my daughter's scream of terror, I strolled calmly into her room and began rounding up the dogs. It didn't take me more than a half a minute or so of arm waving and hissing to chase the 6 imaginary canines out of her room. I was rewarded with a sleepy smile and a thank you, Daddy, as I staggered back to my bed for a restful sleep. After 2 more nights of being chased out of the room, the dogs never returned. In my daughter's sleepy state of mind, those dogs were a real problem. Trying to persuade her that the dogs did not exist merely frustrated her. She felt stuck with a lame parent who foolishly responded to dangerous dogs with discussion and debate. I had to enter her frame of reference and see the dogs to get rid of them. And then he goes on to explain basically the same thing we're teaching here. Excuse me. So this story is the best example I've ever found that shows people how to leverage a different perspective in order to make progress faster. In that little girl's perception, the dogs were really there. She saw them, she believed they were there, and she behaved or reacted accordingly. So the problem was not the dogs. The problem was the belief. The problem is always the belief. Okay, we get so caught up in our convictions and certainty of information. We argue facts and data from our own perspective, beliefs, and then we wonder why messages aren't getting through. And when it comes to money, we try to make that communication a math problem when what we're really solving is the story problem or the belief problem. So financial decision making is emotional. It's not rational. It never has been. People make decisions with emotion, then they try to justify them with logic, but the decision was made at the point of the emotional trigger. Now, we already said that no two people have exactly the same how, so no two people are going to have exactly the same why. Excuse me. Sorry if I keep doing that. The reverse is also true. Since no two people have exactly the same why, no two people are going to have exactly the same how. So you've probably heard before that communication is like throwing a ball. And I'm going to show you a quick 2-minute video on communication in general. It's there might be an ad that plays. I'm going to try to get it to come up. The graphics are super cheesy, but just have a little chuckle at it and just see the illustration for what it is. It's a really good example of what we're talking about.
is Lumen,
Oops.
the first device for hacking your metabolism.
So as the video showed, we want to be able to get messages from one person to the next. So I personally am not a very good catcher. You can ask my kids. I'm one of those people that puts my hand in front of my face or steps out of the way if the ball is coming at me. So if you and I were playing with the ball together, it wouldn't matter how good you are at throwing the ball. I'm still not going to catch it. You being a good pitcher does not make us a good team. But if you understand who I am as your partner and what my capabilities are as your partner, and then maybe you'll toss the ball underhand or even roll it across the ground, and now we can play together. It's just no fun for either of us if we have to keep chasing the ball down the street because you can't send it to me the way I need to receive it. And judging me for the way I need to receive it is not going to change the way I need to receive it. Now, maybe that's something I'm aware of and maybe working on my own, but that's not within the purview of your control. Only your delivery of the ball is. So I want you to think of communication like passing a ball. And that is messaging in general and communication in general before you add a huge trigger point like money into it. We are all triggered in some way or another by money. We all have strong feelings and opinions about making money, using money, and talking about money. These are extremely deep-seated in most of us. Most of us don't even consciously understand our own triggers and behaviors in this area, let alone someone else's. So when we don't understand our own position and we have even less understanding of the other person's position, it's very hard to pass those messages back and forth so that together we can make progress and move forward more quickly. But I do have some tips to share with you on how to put the odds more in your favor. And contrary to what we'd like to hear, it all starts with you. You want to get to know your own money personality as much as possible. You want to pay attention to your triggers and your comfort level. There's tons of books you can actually read on this to gain some insights if you want to. Rachel Cruz has Know Yourself, Know Your Money. Kathleen Gurney has Your Money Personality. There's tons of money personality quizzes online if you just Google it on their internet. And all these things can give you an idea, but if we're being realistic, we know that most of us don't have time to actually go out and do all that, read those books, take those quizzes, do the research in order to gain insights into ourselves. But there's some things you do already know or can at least start paying more attention to. You know if you are more comfortable spending money or saving money. If you're a saver and your family wants to go on some $2,000 vacation, that's going to make you uncomfortable. You know if you're a compulsive money maker and you believe that life is better the more money you earn, or if you're kind of indifferent to money and you believe that money really shouldn't influence the important decisions in your life. For whatever reason, those two ends of the spectrum seem to attract each other because we deal with this a lot in coaching. One partner has a lot of anxiety about retirement or the kids' college, and the other one seems like they could care less about any of it, and it becomes a big point of contention in their relationship. And neither partner can understand the other. And instead of leveraging the best sides of both of them, it just becomes a huge chasm between them. So you have to start with becoming aware of yourself. Everything that we do in life has to start internally within ourselves. And then you can look at the other person. You can't try to change the other person, but you want to get to know their money personality as best you can. What are their triggers? What are their comfort levels? This one is harder, and you're likely never going to know the other person entirely, but you do know from past conversations what's going to trigger them. So if your partner grew up in a household where money equaled fighting, they're going to start getting really squirmy every time you talk about money. And then you are going to assign meaning through your lens as to why they're behaving that way. You're going to start a narrative in your head that says, oh, he's getting squirmy, he must have something to hide. And then it's just going to spiral out of control from there. But if you just left it at, he gets squirmy talking about money because of the way he grew up, and don't create that new narrative in your head about it, the interaction is going to be a lot smoother, a lot calmer, and it's definitely going to be a lot more productive. And then here's the golden ticket. to communication about money, and that's find a common goal. Remember that everything anybody does met a basic human need at one point in their life. It's very important not just to accept, but to embrace each other's differences. More often than not, two people actually do want the same outcome. They just have different routes or reasons or whys and hows of getting there. And I pulled out a few examples of that for you guys today from some of my coaching. So Johnny wants to retire early and Susie wants to help the kids pay for college. So together they can both agree to stop racking up credit card debt because that behavior moves them both away from what they want. Teenage Timmy wants a car to look cool for his friend, and his parent wants to stop having to be the mom taxi. So together they can both agree that some sort of, vehicle funding plan is worth sitting down and having a chat about. In business, Mike wants to sell his business in 5 years, and partner Bill wants to pass it down to his daughter in 20 years. So together they can both agree to pay a really high salary for a great employee that's going to increase profitability now, as well as foster loyalty and retention for down the road. So very often there really is a common goal. People are just taking different approaches to get to the same place. And we're all guilty of lacking clarity when it comes to how to reach our goals. We all get very caught up in the why and the how that oftentimes we forget about the what. And when we do that, we miss out on a lot of opportunities or damage our relationships, not just with others, but also within ourselves. These money dialogues are just as much internal as they are external. People always ask me, what if there truly isn't a common goal? Well, I already said that most of the time, if you dig deep enough and you unpack it far enough, there really is. But if you've done all that and you truly feel that there absolutely isn't a common goal, then that will warrant some decisions or a series of decisions that will have to be made. Sometimes if people are just going in different directions, a separation can be a mutually beneficial option if it's a business or a partnership. But sometimes it's a family member or a loved one, and that's not an option, or it shouldn't be, because that would do way more harm to your heart than the issues we're causing. And that when we're going to talk more about that when we get to our exercise at the end. So don't insist on logic. We've already talked about this, but again, none of us are logical when it comes to money. We all make financial decisions with emotion. We justify them with logic, but the decision was made at the emotional trigger point. So just cross logic off your grid. It's not a player in this game. It never has been. There's entire stock market theories on behavioral finance. So even when it's something that should really rely heavily on numbers and data, it just doesn't when it comes to money. So the sooner you can wrap your head around that, the faster you'll be able to just move forward with your financial outcomes. So don't keep insisting on logic. Time, space, and grace. To be a broken record, everything that anybody does was at one point in their lives necessary for their survival or met a basic human need. We all have old habits, we all have issues, and we all have the right to work through our issues at our own pace. You have no idea what's coming up for the other person, and you don't know what they're actually experiencing. Again, think of the person with schizophrenia or sensory processing disorder. Think of the person that's maybe working through trauma. Having patience and compassion, not just for others, but also for yourself, can deflect a lot of that unnecessary conflict. And create a favorable environment. This one gets its own slide because this is probably the most impactful thing you can do to insulate your financial conversations. Our emotions can be like wild animals that are very hard to get control of sometimes. But we can still mitigate the intensity of the situation and put the odds in our favor by manipulating the environment around us. It's like putting the puppy in a crate. There are some things that you can do to calm the conversation. So the first thing, this is my favorite life hack, and that is to pair the conversation with an enjoyable activity. I share this life hack with people all of the time. This is for anything that you're doing. Anytime you have to do something stressful or scary or unpleasant, or even if it's just something you really don't want to do, pair it with something that you really do enjoy. So fold laundry while you're watching TV. Watch TV while you're using the treadmill. Study while you're taking a bubble bath. Listen to an audiobook while you're making dinner. Just make a list of things that you enjoy and a list of things you'd really rather not do, and see what you can match up together to make the undesired activity a little bit more tolerable. But when you're having a conversation with someone that may or may not end up pleasant, you can put the odds in your favor by pairing it up with something enjoyable, like maybe having a cup of coffee, or going for a walk together, or going for a drive, or working on a puzzle together. One little side tidbit that I would say is sit next to each other when you're having these conversations. So side by side, don't sit across from each other. It's just a psychological thing. It's confrontational. Things are going to go better if you're actually sitting next to each other on the couch or at the table than if you're across from each other. So try to do that if you can too. Also avoid having these conversations when you know there will be distractions like kids or other coworkers. Sometimes people will just, intentionally bring those things up at a time where they know they're going to be interrupted, so they don't really have to deal with it. It's kind of a delay tactic. So also turn off your phones and don't have the TV on. Okay, so number 2 is set a time limit. It's easier to remain in a state of grace and calm when you know when something is going to be over. So you might have to start at 5 minutes and work your way up, but when the timer goes off, everybody has to stop, and this has to be a hard stop, even if the conversation is going well, because it sets the precedent for other times when the conversation may not be going so well. And then don't be hungry, tired, or uncomfortable. You don't want to pile on by making something that can already be difficult more difficult. So eat first, make sure you're wearing comfortable clothing, make sure you're in a quiet environment. If you're someone like me who's triggered by a lot of noise, don't be cold, don't be hot. Just make yourself as comfortable as you can before you enter into that conversation. And carve out a specific time. So try to avoid talking about something right away when it happens if you can, because you're still freshly annoyed and the other person feels attacked, and the conversation can spiral out of control very quickly. Not everything needs to be handled right away in the moment. We're not Pavlov's dogs or toddlers that need that immediate feedback to learn. Most adult humans can connect a consequence or a result to an event that happened a few days or a week ago. I wouldn't wait several weeks or months, but there's a pretty good window, and it's usually broader than most people give it credit for. And then number 5 is don't bring up past issues. So this not only applies to conversations that you have with other people, but it also applies to the conversations that you have internally with yourself. In fact, it mostly applies to the conversations you have internally with yourself. If you're like the majority of the people in the world these days, you carry around a lot of anxiety. And I want to share a tip with you that has been very helpful for me. If you struggle with anxiety, write this down. You will learn everything you need to know in the first 90 seconds of a situation. I'm going to say that again. You will learn everything you need to know in the first 90 seconds of a situation. So replaying it over and over again in your mind is not going to yield any new insights. That was a big one for me to learn it, but if you can internalize that, it will be a game changer for you if you're one of those people that suffer from anxiety like a lot of us do in today's world. But the same is true for bringing up a past argument or indiscretion over and over again. We've all experienced this, I'm sure. It's not productive. It doesn't move anybody forward. The only thing it does is hurt your heart, and it hurts your relationship. So even if your emotion about something is a result of a past indiscretion, just own that emotion without repeatedly linking it to the cause. So an example of this would be, I don't trust you because you spent all our rent money and didn't tell me about it. Well, the emotion now is that I don't trust you. And that's what we need to work on. Repeatedly justifying that emotion with past reasons why I don't trust you doesn't help us move forward. It actually keeps us stuck back here. So you want to avoid that loop, both with other people and then again within your own head. So number 6, everyone has to have input. This is another major cause of contention between people who have to put financial plans together in business or in families. One person likes to say, oh, you're really good at this. Why don't you just take care of it and I'll go along with whatever you decide? don't put yourself in a position to be on either side of this. This is a bomb waiting to explode. It sets up so many potential disasters in business, and in marriages. It sets up or fosters that parent-child dynamic, which is very toxic for a lot of marriages. So it just creates resentment and loss of respect and lots of arguments that could have been prevented. So when someone says, you just go ahead and take care of that, what I hear is, I don't want to take any responsibility in this. When things go wrong, I want everything to be your fault. Now, I know that's probably not what people are thinking consciously or maliciously at first when they say it, but it's amazing how fast things can take a turn for the worst when you're angry at someone. So even if one person is inherently better at making financial decisions, it's fine to let them draw up or map things out, but you still have to take a look at it and have an opinion, because both sides need to have ownership and responsibility in that planning. So speaking of financial plans, we've spent all our time so far talking about how financial decision making is emotional and that logic has nothing to do with it, that it's a story problem, not a math problem. So do we still have to do budgets and savings plans and family rules? Yes, these are all still vitally important. And the reason is because of this. When you find yourself in a place where you don't yet know what to feel, you will still know what to do. And that is exactly what financial plans are for. The mechanics of something can carry you while you figure the rest out. So offload it in advance onto paper. And then if there's something that you're trying to figure out, you can just follow the plan in the meantime. It keeps things moving so you're not stuck or falling behind. These plans are also a very good way to put the responsibility onto your pre-agreed to intentions. It's a lot harder to get upset with somebody about something when you previously, in writing, agreed that it would go a certain way. So these tools, they just take a lot of the resentment and blame and frustrations out of your financial conversations, because they're just a map for you to follow. You still have the freedom to take the scenic route when you want to, but when in doubt or when in the middle of an argument, you can just follow the map while you're figuring the rest out. And again, this works, whether you're working with a partner or a team or in business, but it also works if you're by yourself having internal conflict about what to do with something, what a decision to make. So these tools just provide us with the predictability, reliability, and sustainability that gives all of us the security and certainty that we all seek as one of our core human needs. So I say yes, lean into these tools, especially hard when you're trying to figure out the harder stuff. The mindset stuff, the behavioral stuff, the relationship stuff. So the last thing I wanted to talk about today is, what is financial miscommunication really costing you? This is where we're going to do our writing exercise. Don't worry, it won't take long. I'm actually going to speed it up a little bit because I know we're getting close to the end of our time. But the true quality of life comes down to the quality of the questions that we ask ourselves. Our brains have the ability to use the right tools and find the right answers when we ask it the right questions. So we know now why financial decision-making is emotional, and we learned how to use heart-centered communication rather than logic when we're having our financial conversations. So there's 3 next questions that I'm going to invite you to ask yourself. And for each question, I'm going to give you a short minute to write down what comes to you on your own. And then I'm going to give you just some prompts based on things that I've encountered in my coaching. The prompts will be in the form of questions, but hopefully they will get your brain going and bring some more stuff to the surface for you. So the first question, again, just write this down on your own. The first question is, what has financial miscommunication with somebody already cost you? So what have you already lost? What opportunities have you already missed? Just go ahead and try to think about it on your own. I'm going to give you about 20 seconds. And I'm going to use that 20 seconds to guzzle down some coffee. Okay, and it's okay if you're still writing and thinking. I'm going to just read some of the prompt questions, see if they bring anything else to the surface for you. So, what relationships with other people has already been damaged? Whose parents or grandparents are rolling over in their grave because of the way everybody acted during the estate settlement? How many of you have gotten a divorce from someone you still really love? Or on the flip side of that, how many of you are remaining in a toxic situation because you don't have the resources or the confidence to get out of it? How many of you have a friend or a brother or an adult child that maybe you haven't spoken to in 2 or 3 years? Maybe because you don't get along with the person they chose to be their life partner, or they owe you money, or they lied to you about something. So what have you already missed out on or lost because of financial miscommunications with others? The next question is, what is financial miscommunication costing you right now, today? What are you in the middle of losing right now? What is causing you grief and stress right now? So go ahead and take another 20 seconds to write down what comes to you on your own. And I'm going to read the prompt questions. What relationships are currently being poked full of holes day after day, week after week, with negative conversations or those snide drive-by remarks? How many times does your heart hurt because you want to pick up the phone and call that loved one that you haven't spoken to in years? How many nights are you laying awake? How often are you tired? How high is your blood pressure? How much weight have you lost or gained? Do you miss work sometimes because you're just too stressed out? Have you behaved in ways that are out of alignment with your values or integrity because you're so stressed out? What examples are you setting for your kids? So think of the things that are happening right now in your life today, tomorrow, yesterday. What's happening right now that's a result of financial miscommunication? Question number 3, a little harder, but what future opportunities are you going to miss because of the choices that you're making today? Go ahead and take a few seconds. I'm going to read the prompt questions. If you're in business, is it $1 million business deal? A comfortable retirement? Someone to spend your time with after all the kids are grown? An invitation to see your grandkids? The time and geographic freedom to be able to be with your family and friends whenever you want to? Anything that you can think of that might be a result, a future result of the conflict that's happening in your life today. So here's another value bomb, guys. And I know we're approaching our time and I'm almost done. When you love somebody, your relationship with them is so much more important than being right. I know so many people that argue and bicker over the pettiest of things. And we all know that in the grand scheme of things, everything is petty pretty much, right? If it won't matter in 5 years, don't give it 5 minutes of your time now. But how many of you argue with somebody maybe over a memory of a time where you both experienced exactly the same thing together at exactly the same time, and you're both 100% certain that your memory is right and the other person's is wrong? I knew a couple of people that were really big into that one. How many of you have had a fight with a friend and they were absolutely wrong and you were absolutely right? So you haven't talked to them in months, but gosh, you miss them so much. I don't have a big social network, but I can relate with my kids. I love my kids more than anything in the world. And I would concede or apologize or just let things go if it was tearing us apart. Don't tell them that. But because I value having them in my life way more than I value my pride. And I've seen so many people lose things that are very important to them because of their pride. I believe that you have to take personal responsibility for keeping or repairing the things that you value the most in life. Even if it's not your fault, it is still your responsibility. You're always one decision away from a very different outcome. And when you change the way you look at things, the way you look at things changes. Or when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And money is supposed to be, if you remember, the vehicle that we use in pursuit of all these things that are important to us. And yet somehow, some of us have allowed it to become the barrier between us and those things. And remember, money is just paper and metal or code in a computer. The only value it actually has is the meaning that we give to it. So listen very closely to your internal dialogue. Most of us have extremely negative internal dialogue, and think about how that might be affecting your decisions. Think about this. Would you tell your daughter the same things that you tell yourself in your own head? If a friend said the things to you that you say to yourself, would you still be friends with that person? So for as much as I'm an advocate of time, space, and grace for other people, I'm also a really huge advocate of time, space, and grace for yourself. Just trust yourself, be patient with yourself. Don't break your promises to yourself. As humans, we do way more for others than we would ever do for ourselves. But just imagine how much more you could do for others if you were starting from a good place internally in your own heart. So last thing I just want to invite you to do today is look at the list you made of what financial communication is really costing you. Sometimes there's nothing we can do about those missed opportunities or things that we've already lost, but look at the things you wrote down for the present and the future and circle one. And it can be the one that's causing you the most pain, or it can be a smaller one that's easy to fix, but good to practice on. Whichever one you circle, I want you to try to take action on it and do something about it in the next 24 hours. And the reason you want to do it in 24 hours is because everything we talked about today is still sitting in your mind and your heart. You'll remember what we said about pride and compassion, and you're probably seeing things or feeling things right now that you haven't really felt or thought of before. But you all know what happens when you attend a presentation like this and you walk out with the best intentions, but then Monday rolls around. And even if you do happen to remember your intention, you're not going to be feeling the same way that you feel right now. So that's why it's important that you do it in the next 24 hours. Go fix something in your life that's been hurting you that doesn't have to hurt you anymore if you just set a different intention around it. Invite yourself or give yourself permission to make a different decision. So I invite you all to hang out with me on my social media platforms. Also invite others you know. I try to post little bite-sized bits of value and mindset messages. Most of the pictures I used today were taken out of my social media feeds. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I will accept connection requests on LinkedIn. If you need to reach out to me, you can message me on any of these platforms. There's a question box on my website, or you can email me directly. So now we would like to hear from you guys.
Thank you so much, Jen. That was really good. Left me with a lot of things to think about. I'm sure everyone else. So we're giving you a virtual round of applause. We did have just one question that came through with the Q&A, and that was, what was the name of the book that you pulled those stories from?
Yep, that was Thou Shalt Prosper by Rabbi Lapin.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any last minute questions for Jen? You're getting a lot of praise in the chat. If you don't see that, Jen, thank you so much. This is very valuable. Thanks for presenting it this way. Very insightful. Just a lot of praises coming through as people head out into the weekend. So one question, may we get this recorded version of today's video? So if you want a recording of this today, it's going to be live. It's actually live right now on Financial Beginnings Oregon. We'll actually send out the recorded version from Zoom, in early May. But you can share that link to the Facebook page with them right after this call. Another question from Mary, the wonderful Mary at Financial Beginnings, Oregon. She says, when do you start money conversations with your kiddos?
As soon as possible. I mean, read them books when they're babies about money. You can never start too soon. My kids are very young and they know a lot about money already. It's very important to just make it normal and natural, a natural thing to talk about in their household. And that way, when they grow up, they won't be squirmy about money when they have their own families and they're trying to talk about it in their own households. So make it very normal and natural in your environment. When you're doing your budgeting, talk out loud. When you're having frustrations with your spouse, have them, as long as you're not fighting about it. I don't ever recommend fighting in front of the kids, but if you can have a conversation with somebody and you can do it in front of the kids, so your kids can see you model how that interaction should go and how, hey, this is hard, but we're talking about it and we're working through it. And then when you come up with a solution, your kids get to see all of that. And imagine what that equips them with as they go out into the world and start their own conversations about money with their families later.
Thank you, Jen. I don't see any additional questions coming in, so I'm going to drop a link to our speaker series. Oh, there's 2 links back to back to our speaker series. If you all would like to go ahead and register for other sessions. Just as a reminder, if you're in Oregon or Southwest Washington, you will be eligible for a $1,000 prize. Sorry, I'm blanking on what it's called right now for the Oregon College Savings. So we definitely encourage you to go ahead and register for additional sessions. And we just want to say thank you so much again for being here and watching the session this early morning. We appreciate you being here and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Thank you all so much and have a great day.